Good morning. Welcome to the United States Sports Academy and welcome to this week's edition of Sports Talk, our weekly sports talk program where we talk about the current issues in sports. This week we're going to talk about the football playoff, and joining me is Dr. Brett Simmermacher, our chair of sports coaching, and Mr. Ben Billman will be with us in a couple of seconds. He's one of our very good graduate teaching assistants. Well, yesterday they came out with the second to the last poll of the college football playoffs. And we have the top 10 are Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, Iowa, Michigan State, Ohio State, Stanford, Notre Dame, Florida State, and North Carolina. And as you all know, only the top 4 teams make it to the playoff. And this is the second year that we've had the playoff system. A couple of interesting facts to point out about the top 10 is that at number 3, Oklahoma is in the same place TCU was last year on this particular week. And TCU beat Iowa State 52-3, I believe the score was. It was a big, ugly score. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, went from number 3 to number 6. Also interesting is Ohio State last year on this week was number 6. And as we all know, they went on to win the national championship. Although Ohio State last year had the opportunity to beat Wisconsin 59-0 in the Big Ten championship game, this year they don't have that opportunity. So with the top 4 being Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Iowa, I will ask each of you if you think the committee got it correct. Brett?
Yes, I think it's correct right now. I don't think anybody else should be in the top 4 currently. The only other possibility would be Michigan State, but I mean,
they didn't say Ohio State. Ohio State.
Well, Ohio State's right behind them. Depending on what happens in the other games, Ohio State could be there.
Okay. Ben, do you think they got it right?
I think they got it right. I agree with Brett. Iowa, Michigan State, the winner of the Big Ten championship is going to be that 4th team anyway. So, it's kind of a pick 'em at this point. But I agree. Iowa, undefeated, just won at Nebraska, was a big win for them. So I think it's fair to put Iowa at number 4.
I think they got the 4 teams correct. I would have them in different order. I think of those 4 teams, if you look at the body of work and who they play, I think Alabama should be at the bottom of the list. Alabama has not played a great schedule. I think even SEC homers like Booger McFarland on the radio yesterday admitted to the fact that this has been a down year for the SEC. The SEC East is horrible, and the SEC West is although some of them teams look good in the beginning of the season, like LSU and Ole Miss, we found out later in the season that they weren't as good as we thought they were going to be. Okay, this week we have 4 conference championship games that matter. The ACC pits number 1 Clemson versus number 10 North Carolina. The SEC pits number 2 Alabama versus number 18 Florida. The Big Ten has number 4 Iowa versus number 5 Michigan State. And the Pac-12 has number 7 Stanford versus number 20 USC. Let's start with the Pac-12 championship game. Number 7 Stanford's already beat USC this year. USC just announced this week that the coach Helton has lost the intro tag. He's going to be their new permanent head coach, and they're playing basically in Stanford's backyard at the Levi Stadium, the 49ers. New stadium, so even though it's not technically a home field, it's more or less a home field for Stanford. So how do you guys see the Pac-12 championship game, Bill?
I'll go first. I am going to go with USC. I know Stanford won earlier this season by 10. I just feel like USC has been on a hot streak the last few weeks. I believe they've won 5 of their last 6 games, and with the interim tag taken off of their head coach, I think that gives the team more stability going into this game. And I'm going to go with USC in a very close game.
Okay.
How does Corso say it? Not so fast, my friend. No, I'm gonna go with Stanford just because of the experience and McCaffrey. I think McCaffrey's going to have a big game, and plus Jim Harbaugh used to be the coach. He's got roots from my hometown, Crestline, Ohio. And we also, when I coached at New Mexico Military Institute, one of our football coaches is now a coach at Stanford. So I'm going to go with Stanford.
David Shaw's done an awesome job of Stanford.
Yes,
I think
he
a lot
has.
of people thought that program would slide when
Yeah.
Harbaugh left, and in fact, it's pretty much gotten better.
Yeah.
Shaw's done an excellent job. I'm going to go with Ben on this one, so you can have a double. I think USC is one of those teams that their top 22 are as good as anybody in the country. They're loaded with talent. They've struggled in depth this year because they're still trying to overcome the sanctions they got from the Reggie Bush mess. But, there's been times when they played Oregon, I'm not sorry, when they played Utah, when Utah was number 3 in the country, they just dominated Utah. Last week, a lot of people were picking UCLA to win that game, and they thrashed UCLA. So, USC, I'm guessing this is not going to be a close game. But it could, either team wins, I think will win by double digits, whether it's USC or Stanford. Because USC can play a great game, and then other times they can look not so good. The reason I picked that game first is because Stanford has to win, and if Stanford doesn't win, then all the other things don't really matter to that 4th spot. Okay, I think we all agree that the Big Ten, the winner of the game between Iowa and Michigan State is going to be in the 14 playoff. This is basically unofficially a quarterfinal game for the tournament with number 4 versus number 5. And you're right. If Michigan was 4 and Iowa was 5, it really wouldn't matter. I think Iowa's got to be in there with their record of 12-0. It's not Iowa's fault that the scheduler makers, when they did the schedule, and people need to understand. Some people, I think, don't understand that they do these schedules years in advance. And when the schedule was made, the fact that Michigan State, Michigan, and Ohio State weren't on Iowa's schedule, what couldn't be foreseen that they'd be 3 of the top 6 teams in the country this year, and nobody would have predicted 5 years ago that Nebraska would be 5-7,
Right.
a perennial national power, Nebraska. So Iowa played everybody that was on their schedule and beat them. So they deserve to be where they're at. So I will ask you guys. I'll let you start, Ben. Predict the winner of the Iowa-Michigan State game.
This is going to be a really close game. Being from Big Ten country, I'm a Hoosier fan, but I enjoy watching all the Big Ten teams play. I'm going to go with Michigan State. They've got a lot of big game experience. They've won a Big Ten championship. Last year, they won one of the New Year's Bowl games. I love Iowa too, but I think Michigan State's defense and Connor Cook, the quarterback at Michigan State, are going to be the differences.
Michigan State, by the way, is actually 3-0 against top 25 teams this year. And we've got the records against top 25 teams on our sheet here, and those are the top 25 as they are today. Not like, Texas A&M was number 9 when they played Alabama, and now they're not even ranked because they were highly overrated at number 9. But against the current top 25, Michigan State's 3-0 this year, which is the second best record of all of them behind Oklahoma's 4-0. Okay.
I'm going to go with Michigan State as well. Anybody that can luck up like they did at Michigan and then go into Ohio State and do what they did to them in Ohio Stadium, and then take care of business against Penn State. I think they're going to beat Iowa.
People,
and I think it's going to be ugly.
You think it's going to be big?
Yes.
People in this part of the country will make comments like Michigan State's so lucky to even be there. But being an Auburn grad, I can say this in all honesty. In 2013, there were a couple of plays that, for example, the last play of the Georgia game and the last play of the Alabama.
What's the old saying? I'd rather be lucky than good any day of the week.
Yeah, look at it as Michigan State's a team of destiny when that happened against Michigan. I like Michigan State too, although I have a soft spot in my heart for Iowa because a couple weeks ago they did okay for me for recreational purposes only on covering the spread. I think Michigan State, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think Iowa's solid on both sides of the ball, and we'll keep it close. Okay, the big one in this part of the country: number 2 Alabama versus number 18 Florida.
The only shot Florida has is if Alabama turns it over. I mean, Florida's defense is pretty good, but offensively they're awful. So,
do you believe in the transitive property of football?
No.
Florida crushed Ole Miss. Ole Miss crushed Alabama.
I understand that.
Okay.
But
I agree. Florida has no chance. The only chance Florida has is maybe a block punt for a touchdown, a pick six for a touchdown in a low scoring game. And they could stop Derrick Henry, but they probably won't.
I agree. I think the only chance Florida has is if Alabama's buses break down on the way to the stadium. I think of all 4 conference championship games, I'm the most confident in Alabama over any other team.
Okay. And that's not because Alabama's good. That's because Florida's really bad.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. The final championship game is Clemson, number 1 Clemson versus number 10 North Carolina. What do you think about that one, Brett?
I think North Carolina's hungry. I think Clemson is too. I think it's going to be a heck of a game, but what I want is North Carolina to win. So I'm going to go with North Carolina.
You want North Carolina to win just so Ohio State has a chance.
That's right.
I want North Carolina to win because I want to see chaos. Let's face it, if Clemson and Alabama wins, there's really no reason for the committee to waste all the travel time coming together. It's going to be in. So I want chaos. Yes. I want the committee to have to do some work.
So I think we all picked the Tar Heels here because I picked them too, which is incredible. No one believes in Clemson.
Well, actually, I'm picking Clemson, but I
Clemson,
want North Carolina to win just for chaos.
I'm going with the Tar Heels, though.
Okay.
I think this is going to be the upset of the weekend.
They should have beat South Carolina the first game of the season, so they could be 12-0 as well. Okay, we've got a couple minutes left. Let's do a couple what-if scenarios here. Tell me really quickly, who do you think the 4th team will be if Clemson loses to North Carolina?
If only Clemson loses to North Carolina, I'm going to say Ohio State's in.
Okay.
I'm going to say Stanford. If Stanford gets the win over USC, I think they'll be the 4th team.
So you think a 2-loss team will jump over a couple of 1-loss teams?
Yeah.
Because, if Michigan State wins, for example, Iowa is at that point a 1-loss team as well. Okay, I think if Clemson loses and Stanford wins, it's going to be Stanford as well. I think that's the way the committee will go. But if it was up to me, I would put in a 1-loss team over a 2-loss team. Okay, what if Alabama loses to Florida?
Same scenario. I would pick Stanford as the 4th team.
Okay. Does anybody think that you and North Carolina can go from 10 to the top 4 if they beat Clemson?
I don't believe so.
No.
Okay.
No.
I think just based on their schedule.
They're 0-0. Against top.
And if you look at the criteria, strength of schedule, game control,
Mm-hmm.
all the things that they talk about, well, the teams they played, they should have game control. I just don't see them jumping any of these other teams.
Okay, let's get really chaotic here. And what if Clemson and Alabama both lose?
I have Stanford and Ohio State as the 2 teams that would replace Clemson and Alabama.
Great minds think alike.
Stanford and Ohio State. I think North Carolina's chances go up greatly if Alabama loses as well, because then they're. But I think you can make a good argument for a lot of teams. If Iowa loses on a last-second field goal to Michigan State, for example, Iowa could be in consideration for staying number 4 and Michigan State jumping up if Alabama and Clemson both lose. Okay, what if Clemson, Alabama, and Stanford all lose?
I have the Big Ten champ, Oklahoma, Ohio State, and North Carolina. Those would be my 4.
I have Oklahoma, Big Ten champ, Ohio State, and I think Clemson still stays in the top 4.
I like that. Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Even if it's still 1 loss.
Right.
Everybody else is going to have 1 loss. If Iowa loses, so
you're not putting Auburn in there. I think if Clemson, Alabama, and Stanford all lose, it will be North Carolina, Oklahoma, the winner of the Big Ten championship, and if it's Michigan, I think Iowa stays in the top 4. The same rationale that Ben had for leaving Clemson. Okay, so we'll wait and see what happens next week. Sunday afternoon, when they announce the Final 4 teams, could be incredibly anticlimactic if Clemson and Alabama both win, or it could be pretty exciting if the last scenario we talked about, Clemson, Alabama, and Stanford all losing. I'm pretty sure that my 6-6 Auburn Tigers aren't going to get there no matter what happens, but we'll root for chaos. I read a great article this morning. It said that if Alabama loses to Florida this week, which means the SEC will be out of the 14 tournament, that on Monday the field will be increased to 8 teams instantly to get the SEC in. So, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in this morning, and keep sending those emails in to sportstalk@ussa.edu to give us ideas about what to talk about. I think probably next week we'll probably be talking about the same subject, although if Clemson and Alabama both win, we might find something more interesting to talk about. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and join us every Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Central Time for our next edition of Sports Talk. Have a wonderful week in sports.